Good morning. With the help of Hashem, we are learning Yerushalmi Brachas Perek Ches. We're concluding Halacha Vav, moving on to Halacha Zayin and to the final Halacha Ches, which is going to be, God willing, we're going to make today the Siyum on Perek Ches. In our Dafim, we are going to be learning today Daf Pei Hey, and we left off on Daf Pei Dalid Amid Beis, 10 lines before the bottom of the Amid. The Gemara is going to refer back to the Mishnah in Halacha Vav. And the Mishnah tells us that ein mevarchen al haner ad sheyei oisoi la'oiroi with a aleph, with a ayin, which means that there has to be a benefit, at least in potential. There has to be enough light that one can benefit from it. We're going to have a three-way machloikis into the definition of the quantity of the light. We're going to move on to the new Mishnah, to Halacha, to Mishnah Zayin, and that's going to speak about someone who ate, and instead of benching in that location, which is what one should do, they walked away. When are you obligated? When are you not obligated to return to the place of the meal to bench? And also, how long after the meal could you bench, right? If a person, obviously, after they finish, before going on, they should bench, how much time could pass before us saying it's too late to bench? That will be the Mishnah Zayin, and the final Mishnah Ches, Halacha Ches. The final halacha of this perek is going to be regarding Birchas Hamazon al Hayayin. You know, we quoted this Mishnah many times previously. There is a unique way how the Yerushalmi understands Pshat in the Mishnah, and let's learn it right now. That the Beis Shammai holds, according to the understanding of the Yerushalmi, that there isn't a mitzvah to be mivarech halakos. And therefore, if wine is brought at the end of the meal, obviously, if there's a plentifulness of wine, drink wine, as was their minig, and then bench on wine. L'beisila, l'beishama, you only have 1 cup of wine. Dafka, have it before you finish before you bench. La'achar hamazon, before benching. For that, you're going to make a bari priya gofen, and then bench. Masha enkein beisilo holds that there is a mitzvah to be mevarech halakois. So if you only have 1 cup of wine, you should dafka save it and use it for Birchas Hamazon, after which you're going to make the Breda Priya Gofen and drink the wine. The Gemara is going to speak a lot about the Amen response. We're going to go on the side also to how people responded when Halal is recited. And the Babli, I think that's a Sugi and Sukkah, that the minimum response should be Rashi Perakim. We're going to get into that in a moment. There's going to be a question whether you can respond Amen after a bracha given by a goy. What would be the issue? Maybe the guy was machaven to some sort of avodah zara, and we're going to actually see that during the times of the Mishnah, it was more. We suspect a kuti even more than a guy, b'negeya what he has in mind when he's making a bracha, and as we'll see, you can respond amen after you hear a guy saying even only part of a bracha. When you hear him say Hashem's name, because then you can presume that he was benching Hashem. When you hear a kuti, if you don't hear him from the beginning until the end, if you don't hear the whole Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam, etc., if you only hear Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam, but you didn't hear a word prior to that, which is only 2 words, then after the kuti, you may not respond to Amen. And we're going to conclude this Perek with a story about how the Tana, Rabbi Yishmael, responded to both a bracha given to him by a goy, and to a klala that was given to him by a goy. Without any further ado, Chevra Daf Pei Daled Amid Beis, 10 lines before the bottom of the Amid. Again, referring back to the Mishnah, Ein Mevachen Al Hanei. These are the words of the Mishnah. Ache Yei Oisu La'oiroi. We're going to touch the word Yeoisoi as benefit. And again, the key is that you don't have to have benefit, but someone has to be close enough to have benefit, or the fire has to be large enough for someone to be able to have benefit. What type of benefit? How much light is the minimum? It's the three-way machlokes. Rav Yehuda b'Shem Shmuel says, "Kedei sheyu nashim toivos la'oiroi," enough light which will allow women to spin thread by its light. And if you remember, you have other places in Chazal that we say that the moonlight is enough light for women to spin thread. And that's the smallest share, the minimum amount of light. Amar Rabbi Yechanan, there has to be more light. How much is that? Kedei shetei einoi roya, masha bakois, or masha ma baka'ara. If you have a small item inside your cup, in Machlal, there's like shadows in the cup. Or if you have a bowl not flat. And there should be enough light for you to be able to identify what's in there. And Amar Rav Chinana, and this is going to be the max amount of light, which is Kadesha Yeheyoideya Lahavchen B'Madbeya L'Madbeya. Has to be enough light for you to be able to discern between one coin and the other. In the Bavli, we have a Machlekes Ula and Chizkiah. Ula says that a nickel and a dime, which, by the way, since there are different sizes, you don't need that much light. It's still going to be more than Kadesha Tehei Roya Ma'Bakois. According to Chizkiah, no, we're speaking about two coins that have the same size. One is minted in one city in one country. One is minted in another country. That means the picture of the king is different. And that's taka. You have to have the max amount of light to be able to look at two coins that are the same, that have the same size. They have a difference in their design. And you have to be able to see that. That is called benefit. And as we mentioned, the Minig Yisrael is that we look at our fingernails, which is also connected to the fact that whatever type of loss came into the world through the Chet of Adam and Chava, it only manifested after Shabbos. So we spoke about the darkness. The Oid was Meshamash 36 hours, then came darkness. Whatever type of protection, however you were to understand it, that Hashem created Adam and Chava with, that they lost, the nails represent the protection that we almost fully lost, but they still remain at the edges of the person's body. And in Hashem's kindness, you should just know that in other areas of Torah, the end of the hands and the ends of the feet, they represent the extremities of emotions, which is what hurts us the most, from which we need the most protection. Like when we wake up in the morning, why do we have to be matired? Our hands, the Beis Hamikdash, the hands and the feet. In other words, Hashem took away protection, but he left it where we need it most, which is a beautiful thing. Anyways, we look at the fingernails. For some reason, we dafka don't look at the thumbnail, only at the four fingernails. With all the pratim and hagim, how we look at it from this direction and from that direction. But l'cha'ura, I would say, that is covering the most chamerdika opinion. Because when a person doesn't have long nails and they're clean, you and need light, lahavchen, where the nail ends, where the finger begins. Anyway, says the Gemara, Tani Rabbi Oishia, that you should know, afilu tiriklin eser al eser mevarchen, that even if you have a very large hall, their large hall was 10 by 10, 15 feet by 15 feet. That was like a humongous palace. And there is a candle in one corner of the room, like we're speaking out. Now, for someone standing next to the candle, they can be mafchen bin madbeya l'madbeya. A woman can spin her thread if she's standing next to the candle. So he wants to point out that not everyone has to be there. As long as someone standing there can benefit from the light, even though I'm all the way at the other end of the room, I don't have enough light coming to me. Gam zetoiv, I can still make a brach. The Gemara says a story that Rav Ze'era mikarev kumei butzina. Rav Ze'era would be the one standing right next to the light. He would go next to the light. He wanted to have personal benefit, right? So Amrin lay Talmidav Rebbe ma'ata machmed aleinu. Why are you being so machmed? You are behaving in a way where it appears that for you to make the bracha, you have to be able to have benefit. Did we not just quote the brayso from Rabbi Oishia? Afilu teraklin eser al eser mevarchin. In other words, why do you have to go so close? And here it's a gewaldige thing. Now, perhaps one person has to be able to benefit. So now think about it. The relationship of a chassid and a rebbe, that's really what's going on over here. Do we say that, since the rebbe has benefit, so it does the job for us as well? And the Talmidim of Rab Ze'era were Chabad Chasidim. And we come with the approach that the Rebbe cannot do the Avodah for us. In other words, if the Rebbe is role modeling that you got to see the light yourself, then the Chassid also would have to see the light themselves. And that's not something that's needed. Okay, let's leave it at here. Let's move on to the next halacha, halacha Zayin. Weiter machloikes b'shama and b'silul, hilchas seuda, mi sha'achal, if someone ate the shachach and he forgot the loy beirach and did not make a bracha, meaning he left the place of his meal without benching. There's a three-way machloikes rishonim. What meal are we referring to? And we paskin like Tosfos and the Rosh, that our Mishnah is speaking not only about bread, also about mezainis, but only about bread or mezainis, for which you have to make an ala michya, and not for wine and not for the other shivas haminim, certainly not for anything that needs a body nefashis, rabbis v'chesreinan. That's not being discussed in our Mishnah. There, when you forgot and you walked away, you certainly could make a bracha where you remembered. Masha Enkin, when it comes, not only we're going to learn pshat in the Mishnah to su'uda of bread, even if you have to make an ala michya, and therefore, yes, you have to bench where you ate. Here you already walked away. But even though shachach means bishoygeg, even though you forgot, nevertheless, doesn't matter. You must always return back. That since it's v'shachach, that's key, not b'mezid. B'mezid, you also have to go back since it's b'shoygeg. You are allowed now, post facto, to make the bracha, the benching or the ala michya in the place where you remembered. But lechatchila, of course, l'kula alma, make it where you ate. Second topic, va'ad masay mevarech. No, it's not about walking away. This is whether you walked away or whether you stayed in the same place. You didn't bench right after you ate. So the words of the Mishnah are, until when can you bench? Ad kedei sheyisakel hamazayin shebemeyav. Until when the food in your stomach is digested. Now, how do you know whether the food is digested or not? We'll see in the Gemara two simanim. So the Pnei Moshe brings one of them. Calls man she'ena ro'ev machmas oiso achila. If you're not hungry again. Obviously, that's something a little bit difficult to put your finger on. How do you define that? Some people can argue they're hungry 10 minutes after they ate, or 30 minutes after they ate. You have to know, how do you define the word hungry? But let's speak about it more when we get to the Gemara. Okay, so let's go first. The Gemara is going to address the first topic of the Mishnah, and on that the Gemara says that Rabbi Yusta bar Shuneim Amar. I want you to know that today Amorayin, there were two Amorayin. One of them expounded the Ta'amoin de Beis Shammai, turning to Daf Pei Hey Amud Aleph, and Vachad, and the other one explained Ta'amoin de Beis Hillel regarding the Shachach, the Shoygeg, post facto, must you return, or like Beis Hillel, you can say it where you are. Man the Amar, right? Ta'amoin de Beis Shammai, this is what he explained. Ilu Shachach Sham. Forget about eating, benching to God. If you sat in a place and you forgot there a treasure, you had a pouch filled with gold, filled with margolius, with pearls. Are you not going to go return? Of course you're going to go return. How great is that? In other words, saying the words of the Rashid Elio, the first one in the Amid, I would suggest perhaps, al pi Chasidus, that it's not just about the kavod atzmai, that when we eat properly and ultimately bench properly, the sparks from toyu, these are the avanim toivus umargoliois that were hidden inside the food, moitze pi havaya, in the lechem, you elevate. And that needs to be done in the place where you ate. You have to go back. Why would you let it be? Why would you leave it there? However, man, the mar kaman de besilo, gavalde. Now, this reason is based on a premise that people say, how do you even know this? But this is the premise, that if a person who ate a meal, who forgot the bench, and now they went to a place that it takes a time to get there. They're working on top of a palm tree, or they're working inside a pit, which were to mean that if they have to return, it's going to take a lot of time. They're going to spend time to be able to go back to the place. Again, the premise, would we demand for them to return? Of course not. So even though the guy here is not on top of a tree, he's not inside a pit, the way I'll perhaps suggest is that just like we have to elevate the sparks in the place, just like we have to elevate the sparks in the food, that's makom, we have to elevate the sparks inside time. And Beis Hillel is valuing the time factor. Use your time appropriately. Spending excessive amount of time or wasting time is not elevating the avanim toivos umargolios in zman. Going back, chabal al asman, perhaps. In other words, what's more important, the sparks in makayim or the sparks in zman? Maybe that's the machlokes. Weiter. Ad masayum bevarich, and the Mishnah gave the shir the words ad kadeshi is akal hamazon shebemeyav. Let's go define that. Machlokes. Rabbi b'shem Shmuel ad sheyis akal hamazon shebemeyav means, guys, we will skip the words chachamim. Shmuel is defining what that means. Now here you have better words, not the words that we read in the Pnei Moshe. Kol zman shutzamei machmas oisa suhuda. When you eat, dafka, because you ate, there's a sensation of I need to drink. And as your body, many people say Yom Kippur at night, I'm so thirsty. You drink a gallon of water because you ate a lot of food, and the body needs water to digest the food. Not during the meal, the Rambam writes, after you ate. So if you will pay attention to your need of water, as long as your body is digesting, you feel that sensation of I need to drink. The moment you don't need to drink, it means the food was digested. Rabbi Yochanan says, no, the shir that the Pnei Moshe brought, at sheyirav, until when you become hungry again. Now, there's a machlekes here amongst the commentators. Is that a longer zman or a shorter zman than Shmuel? So the Rashi really understands, at sheyirav, machmer hu mishmuel. Machmer means you have less time. It's less time than Shmuel. So it's eating or drinking. Okay, weiter. Final Mishnah in this chapter. Now, because of us really wanting to finish the Perek Hayoim, so just to speak out, not how the Bavli learns it, that the Bavli does not learn Pshat in the Mishnah the way we're going to learn it. But we're going to learn now. We're learning Yerushalmi, so let's go just dive in. Says the Mishnah. Bo lohem yain acher amos. Wine was brought to them after the meal. We're not speaking about Matzah Shabbos. There is no Havdalah over here. Okay? And as we learned a lot already, that Seder Hamazon, Seder Seuda, was that they would drink wine and eat parperois pre-meal, and they would drink wine after the meal. Another nuance, we're not speaking about a scenario where they already made a bracha by the priyagofen during the meal or prior to the meal. Speaking about a case where no wine was brought before. This is the first time wine is coming out, which will demand for one making a bracha now because you didn't make it yet. If you have more than one kais, drink wine after the meal and drink wine for Birchas Hamazon. But here you don't have that option. You only have one cup. It's better to make a bracha on the wine prior to eating. Okay? And then, as we will see inside our sugya, because I'm looking inside the Charedim, 4 or 5 lines from the top of the Amid, that Beis Shammai learns the Ein Birchas Hamazon to Una Kois. Number 1, you don't have to bench on holding a cup. But number 2, and the Adarabah. What's the Adarabah? Sirulei Beis Shammai. It's even better not. The Ein Levarich Birchas Hamazon Ala Kois. I don't know if it's better not or dafke not. Why? So Beis Shammai was afraid that since the Boyer Priyagofen is a very short bracha, you're benching a whole long Birchas Hamazon, all the 4 brachas, you will accidentally, after saying so many words of blessings to God, somehow right away drink the wine. The only challenge with this nuance is that the Mishnah is saying ve'ein sham elo oisa hakois, which implies that if there would have been an option of both drinking wine prior to benching as post meal and also wine for Birchas Hamazon, mashma that you that you would do both. But the Charedim is saying no. That the ein sham elo oisa hakois is Beis Hillel, only for Beis Hillel. Oh, it's Beis Hillel holds that there is a mitzvah to bench ala kois, even though people enjoyed having wine after the meal, doesn't matter. You only have 1 cup. Use it for the mitzvah to bench ala kois. Beis Shammai holds that not only don't you have to bench ala kois, Beis Shammai doesn't want you to bench Back in the Mishnah. He said, no, mevarech ala mazoi. There is a mitzvah. The words are birchas hamazain. Yes, to unakois. Finish. So therefore, that's if you only have one cup, use it for the mitzvah, and not for your pleasure of post meal. Another din in the Mishnah. Second din in the Mishnah. Let me just give you right away. I know let's go through it. You can see what I'm saying inside the Charedim. The Mishnah is saying that even though you did not hear the entirety of the bracha from the Yid that was making Boire Priya Gofen, which will mean that if you want to be Yoitze, his Birchas HaNehenen, in the cases that you could, you have to hear the whole bracha. That's not the case of the Mishnah, as the Gemara will explain. You're not listening to the bracha to be Yoitze anything. You don't need to hear the whole bracha to answer Amen. You actually, as the Gemara tells us, that in the Shul in Alexandria, Shul Mitzrayim, they didn't hear any of the bracha. There were the flags in the Shul. Don't think we were the first ones that brought flags into the Shul. And over there, just to make for the record, they were Yidden that they said their own Shmoyne Esrei. They did not need to be Yoitze. If the Baal Tefillah is saying it for you, you have to hear all the words. That's not the case of the Mishnah. I don't have to hear the whole bracha to answer Amen. In contrast, ve'ein oinen Amen, achar kuti mevarech. You have a kuti, and what was the suspicion? That they already, some of them were serving their idol, the Tzuras Yoina. Not important. And the word here is, even though you heard the kuti from the word Hashem, including the word Hashem on, El Hashem, Elokeinu, Melech Olam, B'nei Priya Gofen, since you did not hear Baruch Atah Hashem, you have to be suspicious that the goy was benching his Avodah Zarah. Don't answer Amen. But even by the kuti, if you hear all the words, that's what the Mishnah is saying, then you don't have to have such a suspicion. By a goy, you will see in the Gemara that you don't know. If you hear only Hashem Elokeinu Melech Olam B'nei Priya Gofen, you could answer Amen. He's not going to say Shem Hashem and have in mind Yoshkin. He won't do that. But a kuti might have done it. But if the kuti is going to say the whole formulation, then we don't suspect. Okay, says the Gemara.
A guy is allowed to make a bracha?
Why not?
Why, yeah.
Why not? Okay. I'm talking about to Hashem. Now, I want to go further. Today, I mean, they didn't have a juice for Jesus. Speaking of L'choida today, maybe there's even a suspicion halachic. No, you have to be careful today that if a goy today makes a bracha, lav dafka, even if you hear the whole bracha, maybe not. Maybe the goy had in mind l'shem his avodah zarah. Then he's saying not maybe. Yeah, and you say yeah. The Mishnah is not speaking about that. America's not a Christian, and if he says a whole bracha, then you should not answer amen because maybe he's l'schaven you. Okay, let's go back. Says the Gemara. Bolam liayin acher amaz. So Amar Rabbi Ba, right? That's Rabbi Abba. Al yidei shehi bracha ketano. This is the way again. That's what the Charedim spoke out. That it's not only that Beis Shammai holds that ein birchas hamazon to unakois. It's not only that Beis Shammai dafke doesn't want you to bench alakois at all, ever, because since it's such a short bracha, and after that's the nature when you're talking to Hashem and benching Hashem, dafke because you just came off birchas hamazon. Beis Shammai feels that you're going to feel you already benched Hashem for the wine. Shem yishkach v'yishta. Nekuda, period. Now, and not, in other words, this is very important. We dafka don't want you to understand that pshat in the Mishnah is that Beis Shammai holds ein birchas hamazon to unakois, but if you want, you could do it. We don't want to learn pshat that if you have more than one kois, even though the Mishnah is speaking about a case for ein shaman lo oisa kois, Beis Shammai is even if there is more than one kois. You have 100 koisos. Don't bench alayayin. That's very important. That's the Yerushalmi's understanding in Beis Shammai. We don't paskin like that. We hold that birchas hamazon to unakois and we dafka bench alakois. Next, oinen amanache Yisrael. Right. So the Gemara says, that ha'ache Yisrael oinen amein afal pi shalei shama. Right. We're saying that after the kuti, acha yishma kol habracha. Ein oinen. Acha yishma. But by a yid, you can answer even if you didn't hear. Problem is, like we mentioned, that anyone who wants to discharge their obligation, answering amen does not do it. Answering amen is the bonus, is the cherry on top of the pie. When I'm being yoitza from your bracha, it's shemea ka'ina, and I have to hear and every word. Right? Why nowadays, when the person is benching, why don't we have one person benching the whole thing out loud? Because today, the Alter Rebbe writes, people don't have the capacity to be mechavan to every single word. You can't say I answered amen. That's the kasha. That's the kasha. Did we not learn in the Braisa that shama v'layana yatsa? No, it's the ikid is the listening. Ana v'loy shama lo yatsa. And the Mishnah seems to imply that if you hear, you can answer amen, even though you didn't hear the whole bracha. How is that possible? So the Gemara says, oh yeah, very good. Our Mishnah, right, when we spoke about the kuti, we're not speaking about someone who's answering to be yoitze. Lo mashal, by Birchas Hamazon. Our Chia Berei de Rav Amar, a very creative answer. Our Mishnah is B'shaloi Achali Moim Kazayis. You're not even chayv midrabanan to bench. The question is, when a kuti is benching, I should be chayish. He's benching l'shem is a yoina. That's the topic of the mission.
Clear.
Yes.
If you have a yotzer with someone's bracha, you could always answer amen.
That's the word.
That's what we're learning.
By a yid and by a goy, that's not. That's all about avodah zarah.
Then you have to hear the whole thing.
Very good. Now, it happens to be that the Braisa that the Gemara just quoted was not just speaking about Amen, it was actually speaking about Hallel. So now we're going to get a little bit sidetracked in B'negei Hallel. Says the Gemara, that Shama v'lo yatz, mashma, that if I have to say Hallel, Hallel is one of the 7 D'Rabbanans, right? So I'm going to be Yoitza, even though I didn't answer anything. Mashma, if I didn't open up my mouth, as long as I heard every word, I'm Yoitza, right? Ana v'lo Shama lo yatz. So as says the Gemara, hold on, Rav B'Shem Abar Bar Chana, or V'Ista Amrila, that this was said by Abar Chana B'Shem Rav, that no, not the way it sounds. Don't think that by Hallel, if Shama v'lo yana anything, or v'lo yana amen, you're yotzi. Yeah, if you didn't answer amen, you'll be yotzi. But there is some type of aniyah that's needed by Hallel dafka. Who sha'ana rashi prakim. And this is a whole big topic. This is a whole topic. What is Rashi Parakim? So we have over here a whole big machlokes what Rashi Parakim is. Look inside the first wide line under the Gemara and the Charedim. And this is right, the Sugi and Sukkah. So he brings, you know what, let's keep on reading. The Charedim brings in the second line, Daran. We spoke about when we learned to think about it. There's a bunch of Mizmorei Tehillim, right? And then you have one Shita in this Sugya, say it by heart, that divides Hallel into 2. From Hallelujah, Hallel Avdei Hashem, until Kapitel Kuf Yud Ches, until Hoydel Hashem Ketev Kilo Elam Chazdei, it's like 2 kapitla. And the way it used to work, and now what I'm saying now is not that we learn Rambam, but Taran says, we learned this when we learned the Gemara, is that they would say a pasuk, and then everyone would say Hallelujah. They would say the next pasuk, Hallelujah. According to the Ran, they would continue to do so all the way until Kapitel Kuf Yud Ches. Then, when they came to Kapitel Kuf Yud Ches, Hoydel Hashem Ketev Kilo Elam Chazdei, Hoydu. Yemen Yisrael Kilo Elam Chazdei, Hoydu. That was the Rashi Parakim. And everyone else learns, no, it wasn't that way. Is that every top of the Mizmor, I know that in your Siddur, the Hallel is divided into more portions as they are divided into Tehillim. But you have to look into Tehillim. Kapitel Kuf Yud Gimel, Kapitel Kuf Yud Daled, that in the beginning of every part, they would respond either with Hallelujah or with the first pasuk, all of those nuances we had in Sukkah. So let's read it inside. In other words, don't understand Pshat in the Braisa, Shama v'lo yatsa, Shama v'lo yana yatsa means you don't have to respond at all. No. You don't have to respond to Amen. No more important than the Amen. By Hallel, because that's unique than by Hallel. That Hallel has to be said. We already spoke out that why do we say Vaidim the Rabbanan? That was the Abu Draham. We spoke this out on the Yerushalmi twice already. Chazaras Hashatz is good. Vaidim the Rabbanan everyone has to say, because praising God, you have to praise yourself. I can be Yoitze Shmei HaKohen and not when it comes to thank you. In other words, if I say thank you to you and someone else hears me, Shemei Ka'ina, doesn't work. So by Hallel, everyone has to say something. That's what we're saying. I'm saying, boy, 1 second. Hi, inin Rashi Parakim. And he answered, Hallelujah, Hallelujah Avdei Hashem, Hallelujah Hashem Hashem. Again, the Ran holds that the whole thing is one. Everyone else also. The Asherilio says, in other words, from Hallelujah, Hallelujah Hashem, everyone would say Hallelujah. B'tzeis Yisrael mitzrayim, B'tzeis Yisrael. Then loylanu, loylanu, ahafti, Hallelujah Hashem kol goyim. We do every capital Tehillim. They would respond. Everyone, no, not everyone would say it. Everyone would respond after every pasuk with a few words of the beginning of that phrase. Okay, says the Gemara. Ba'on kamei Rab Chia bar Abba. Minayin she'im shama v'loy ana yatsa. How do you know that? And by the way, it comes from here that even though it was said b'shem Rav, that even though the Brisa says shama v'loy ana yatsa, Rav says no. You don't have to say yami, but you have to respond with something. Rab Chia bar Abba argues with that. Yerushalmi is bekitzer. Instead of him writing, he argues. The question is, they asked him, how do you know to argue with Rav? How do you know that you take the words of the Braisa literally, that Shimshama v'layana anything, you will still be yoitz? How do you know that? So turning to the Afei base, so Rab Chia bar Abba responded, Min ma da'anan chami, from that which we see, Rabban and Rav Rivaya of den came. He actually says, I don't need to have a proof from anywhere. First of all, the words of the Braisa is much more like him. Shama, V'loyana, Yatsa. But he says where he was, all of the Chachamim, all of the shuls, not only your shul, all of the shuls, the Chabad shul, the Sfardik shul, when they said Hallel, the only time people began to get involved in the recitation was from Baruch Haba. And even over there, the way it worked was, that means the Baltfila said everything, no one said a peep. When they came to Baruch Haba, look inside the top Charedim. That Shehoyu Nahagen, mi Baruch Haba, ve'elach loimer, elu k'tzas tevois, ve'elu k'tzas tevois. So even the Baruch Haba, everyone else said B'Shem Hashem. Berach Nuchem, other people said Mebeis Hashem. In other words, there was a certain involvement of the people only from there. And if you're going to say that you have to respond to Rashi Purakim, that's not the, it's not the way people were knowing. That ilu kayomim is. The truth is that we learned is so good in Sukkah that you can be koiful, and we learned from where are you koiful. The Gemara says, and from Kapitel Kuf Yud Ches, from Hodel Hashem Kitoy, we begin repeating from Hodel Hashem Kitoy. Even though Yisrael, we go back. There's different types of repetitions. It's not, we don't really begin Baruch Haba. On Hashem, we repeat the four Psukkah before, and then the Gemara said over there in Sukkah and Bavli that you can repeat whatever you want. You can be koiful. Unlike Shema Shema, Moedim Moedim, right? That's another Sukkah that you can't repeat. There you could repeat. People that have OCD, many people with OCD, they like repeating. They feel better. On Hashem Moshiach, no nish genug. On Hashem Moshiach, then on Hashem Moshiach. There's not to hate. The Gemara says you can do that. Huh? Lav dafke. So lav dafke that the reason why really by us when the Baltfila repeats by Kesed, he doesn't begin Shema Yisrael. He begins Hashem Elokeinu. Even though the oilum and they said the whole Elokeinu. At kedei kach oimim Shema Mashas Kenoisoi that the Baltfila doesn't even begin Shema Yisrael. Okay, anyways, so he says from what we see, Rabban and Rav and Odin came that inu koyim mitzibura, the ilan omnim dein Baruch Haba, and the elon omnim b'shem Hashem, and other than from Baruch Haba on, other than that, the elon yoitzin yedei chavasa. So I know that Rav is not right. I know that the words of the Brisa must be taken literally. All right, now that we mentioned Ameh, now we're going to learn a very big topic about Ameh. Yeah, the best way to have a machlokes hanav. I like what Danny is saying. The best way, in other words, we're not debating proofs from the Torah Shabbat Peh. We're bringing a proof from Ma'aseh Rav. It's called Ma'aseh Rav. Hook. Ma amod dabar. The Gemara says this in Bavli the whole time. Go look what the oilam does, and if that's the way it's done, you speak with the Rabban and Rav Ravin. It's not done in the Amaratzas or Shtibla. It's done over there by the Geret Rebbe. It's done by the shuls with the big people, and that's the way they do it. So don't come and tell me that if you're not, you don't repeat Yad Shaparak and it doesn't work that way. That's a good thing. Who was that? Okay, I don't want to speak about the topic. I was thinking about when many Yidden are knowing a certain way, have to be very careful how you go ahead and attack that. Remember when he printed the book of Hadras Panam Zaken? No, it was a very Hadras Panam Zaken. He made it sound like whoever shaves is being goyim, which is true. L'shita Samach Tzedek, but you have to be careful. You can't go. There we go. Okay, right. Tani Rabbi Shaya. Here we go. I know who Adam Amen Afilu Loi Achal. Now, another thing. Before we get to the Amen, that if you did not eat, you say Amen. You say Amen to Birchas Hamazon. And hold on, very nice. That's the whole point of our mission. That was we were saying that when the mission is saying that I can answer Amen after a Yid that made the Birchas Hamazon, even though I didn't hear the whole bracha, we're speaking about I'm not chayiv. If I'm chayiv to eat, I have to hear everything. But now the question will be, what do you do by the zimun? You can't say that Baruch she'achalnu mishaloi. If I didn't eat at all, what should you say? That you don't answer to. Now, we answer something. Right? Baruch u'mavayrach shemay tamid la'olam vad. Or Baruch Elokeinu u'mavarach shemay tamid la'olam vad. The Gemara is not saying this over here. The Gemara is saying that
together.
No. Okay. We answer Baruch. We say Baruch u'mavayrach shemay tamid la'olam vad. Not by heart. Yeah, right. Okay. Then we learn the Rabbi. Let's go to the answering of Amen. Ein oinen Amen Yisayma. You don't answer an Amen Yisayma. Now, what is a Amen Yisayma? We're going to see soon. And in the Amen Yisayma itself, we're going to have Pnei Moshe says like Haman Mefadash Lei. We're going to have a machlekes between the Pnei Moshe and the Charedim. So don't say an Amen Yisayma. V'loi Amen Ketufa, a plucked Amen. So look at the difference. In the Charedim, what's a plucked Amen? That no. 1 second. He says it is different. Amen Ketufa. By the way, the Charedim has a different seder in this thing. Amen Ketufa is don't confuse it with Chatufa, even though the Charedim has Chatufa first. Amen Ketufa means you divide the word into two. Amen. Many people do it. Pause main. That's what he writes. Amen Ketufa. Shepasak Amen Lishnai. From the Aruch. Amen Ketufa and the Pnei Moshe, that you don't say the nun. You pluck the nun. Amen. No, not yet. Now let's go next. V'loi Amen Chatufa, a snatched Amen. So we're writing the Pnei Moshe. My fingers on the Pnei Moshe, which means that you say it very quick. You chap it. Shechoitev Hamila v'oimeres v'oimer b'mihirus. Now, the Charedim says no. The Charedim says Amen Chatufa means you begin to respond before the kratzit over there. He is taking so much time, you're trying to rush the guy along, so you begin to say Amen before he finished the bracha. Very different. Not that you're choitev the milah, not that you say the word too quick. That you begin to respond before the blesser finished his blessing. Next. So what is still open? The Amen Yisayim. Ben Hazai Omer, Ha'oyna Amen Yisayma, Yuban of Yisayim. Oigevalt. Chatufa, Yischatfu Shenoisav. Oigevalt. Ketufa, Tikatev Mishmasai. Now, what's the difference between Yischatfu Shenoisav or Tikatev Mishmasai? I mean, the years will be snatched away or your soul will be snatched away. I know the difference. Your years will be snatched away. L'chayda means you're physically not going to live. You won't have that many years. Your soul being snatched away, l'chayda means you'll live without a soul. Arucha. Now, by the way, arucha doesn't mean too long. Too long. Main is oichet nishgot. Arucha means normal, properly. Who says that? No. I just read this somewhere. Arucha dafka doesn't mean too ois geschlept. So what do we do? So then, long days and long years. Now, what do we have to still explain? What's too long? Kasha. Now, 1 second, we still have to explain. The way you say it is perfect. That's the only thing that we left open. So says the Gemara, Amar Afuna. Now this is how we're going to read it. Dain, the Chayav Lemevarcha, V'hu Ana, guys, listen, V'lo Yada Lemahu Ana. Now you understand why we're learning it now. Amen Yisayma means not like the case in the Mishnah that, like the Gemara said before, he didn't eat a kazayis. You ate a kazayis. You are chayiv to make that bracha. Or when people are being meseiv biyachad, we learned before, one can make the birchas hanehen prior for everyone. People are obligated to make it. But you don't even know, you didn't hear the bracha at all. Just to know, v'lo yada means you did not hear it. The Charedim writes very important. You know what's being said. Upedish v'lo yada, why would it mean shaloi shama habracha? You didn't hear it, or you didn't hear all of it. It's the same thing. Afal pi, you know what bracha was being made. So you would think, I know the guy said it. I'm saying amen. Why? That's called the assignment. There's no father. The father is the bracha. The amen is the son. There's a disconnect. Even the chayiv uba anayasi amen yatsi they chavasai emoy la'anes.
Maybe he was sitting at a meal, having power, and now the kabbalah where everybody makes their own bracha. You're at the end of the make the bracha, but I don't hear it. I see you eat, so I eat.
Not eat, you say amen. More.
I say amen, and then I eat.
Let's go back. The Gemara, we learned this in Babli, that in Alexander Mitzrayim, where the shul was so big that people in the back did not hear the Baal Tefillah. When they made the flags for people to know what to answer, that was dafka if they were already yoitz. And if a person was unable to articulate Shemona Esrei as was common then, you have to actually hear every word from the Baal Tefillah. And it's not enough that you know that he said Refa'enu and you said Amen. Now let's go back to the other part of the mission. So we learned in a Braisa that goy, that nuance, that a goy, even if you didn't hear the whole brach, you're not being yoitz. You only heard from Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam. You didn't hear Baruch Atah, but you heard God's name, and you are allowed to answer Amen. In other words, a kuti is worse than a goy. By a goy was tam oved avodah zarah. Why would he say God's name unless he's benching God? You can say Amen, because you can agree with benching God's name. We never agree if there's any other deity with a little d that this person is foolishly involved in. By a kuti, we suspected them. Like we learned in the Mishnah, even though you hear the kuti saying Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam, whatever the conclusion was, you're not allowed to answer Amen. The only time you can answer after a kuti is if you hear the formulation mitchilase v'atzvayfik. That is what we learned in the Mishnah. A kuti was someone who was behaving like a Jew, was tricking you he's a Jew, even though really he served his old avodah zarah. He was saying Jews for Jesus is even worse. That's maybe that even if you hear the whole bracha, because they do that. They trick, they're liars. They take a Manoida, they take a Magen David, they show themselves to be full-fledged, and when they're fully not fledged. Now, in Beirachacha goy here means even if an Oved Avodah Zarah is giving you a blessing, Anei Achrav Amen. Well, it doesn't say here. The Siv, now this is Gavaldik, Baruch Tia Mikolo Amen. I appreciate the drasha, because the pshat of Baruch Tia Mikolo Amen means that God is saying that the Jewish people are the most blessed from all the other peoples. That's the pshat. The drasha here is that God is promising us that we will get blessings from the nations. So when a member of the other nations gives you a bracha, you're seeing the fulfillment of the pasuk Baruch Tia Mikolo Amen. What don't you have to suspect? You don't have to suspect that he's blessing you b'shem his idol. Obviously, if he says that, don't say Amen. But if he Istami gives you a bracha, all you're saying is you're seeing the fulfillment of Baruch Tia Mikolo Amen. And for that, the Gemara brings a story that Goy Echad, Paga es Rabbi Yishmael, and Ubeirchoi. And after he gave him a bracha, what did Rabbi Yishmael respond? Thank you for your blessing. He didn't say that. He said, Kfar Milsa Chamira. The response is already said. He gave him a very enigmatic thank you or comment. He didn't say thank you. He didn't respond to him. He told him the response to your blessing is already said. Then, Pagachrina, another time, whether it was one after the other, whether it was another time, another goy met Rabbi Yishmael and Vikiloloi. Amalei, the same words. Kfar milsach amira. That the response to what you're saying is already stated. So amru loy talmida v'rebbe, the amrit lohadein amart lohadein, doesn't make sense. And I'll tell you more than that. They understood, they understood that when the first guy benched him, and he said the words kfar milsach amira, what he meant to say is that I don't need your blessing. I was already blessed by God. What you said is already stated. If that is what he have meant, then he shouldn't have said it, and he couldn't have said it when he was cursed, because the Yidden are not cursed. In other words, they understood that they didn't understand what he meant with kfar milsach amira. Can't be the same for the blessing, the same for the curse. So Amar loin, no, you misunderstood me. I could give the same words kfar milsach amira, because what I'm actually doing, Rabbi Shmuel was telling the person, referring to what Hashem told Avraham Avinu, that mevoracheka baruch mekalalecha o'oir, that when someone benched Rabbi Shmuel, the biggest bracha that he gave him back was not him blessing him, was him evoking the blessing that God gives to those who bless the Jews. Kfar milsach amira is not, it's almost like it was not necessary. That's the way I understood it. They gave him a bracha, yeah, we already blessed. No, that the response to your blessing is stated by God. What's the response to the first guy? You'll be blessed. And then when the other guy cursed him, God curses those who curse the Jews. So he told him that the response to what you said is already said. Baruch Tim Kolamim is a whole different pasuk. By the way, the biggest bracha, I'll tell you better. In other words, by when Reuven tells Shimon, that's much better. That's the response, because when I'm telling you, may you be blessed for blessing me, who's giving the blessing? Me. And I'm giving the bracha. Rabbi Shmuel wanted to evoke God's blessing. God blessed you. That's what he's saying. He says that the response, why should I give you the response? It's being said by God. It's already said. And then the guy who curses, the response is already said. That I'm sorry, guys. You're right. Jonathan is right. I thought he quoted the pasuk in Lech Lecha. He didn't. Yeah. It's talking from Baruch Tim Kolam, but it's the same concept. Even though there's a difference. Difference is that Mevoracheka Baruch umekalalecha oir. Yeah. In other words, God already gave you your response. And on that we say, God willing, God next year will embark. All right. Embark on the new chapter, the final chapter of the first Masechta that we're learning together here in Yerushalmi. Thank you.